It's about 2 o'clock, so I want to get started. We're recording this session, so we can always review this at a later time. Today, I want to talk about quiz questions. One of the things that we get often is faculty coming in and they have created quizzes and they use pretty much true and false and multiple choice, maybe essay questions, but they haven't really explored how many different question types there are within Canvas itself. So I thought I'd do some of the lesser known questions and give examples of how you set those up and how they might be used to kind of spark some interest for you in doing your quizzes. So what I've done is I'm sharing my screen. You should be able to see everything here. Of course, chat is over to the side here. Chat is here, yay. So make sure that if you do have any questions, you can always type them there. The presentation itself should take about 20 minutes. We're gonna cover 7, I think, different question types. We'll spend a couple minutes on each one in developing those, look at some of the tools and resources, and then some of the other best practices and tips that we have for using and creating those quiz types. So I am in Canvas right now. I am in a student testing area, and I have created an example quiz here. So I'm going to go ahead and click to get into that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to preview this to start so I can show you some of the things that I have. So in question 1, we have your standard multiple choice, which allows you to choose one answer from many possible answers. So you would just choose one of these. Question 2, we're going to look at the multiple selections. This is a multiple choice. This allows you to have multiple answers to the one question. So in this example, we're going to be able to pick multiple. Notice here that we have circles for a single choice, only picking one, and then we have check boxes. So that's a way that you can differentiate between the two when you're looking at previews. This actually allows you to select more than one. One of the cool ones that I like is having drop-down menus. This is a little different than what you would have for a fill in the blank, whereas we're prompting them with some possible answers that are already in there. A fill in the blank would be using a recall from memory, whereas this is kind of a triggered piece where they have a list and they want to choose the best answer from those. Question 4, this is a fill in the blank, a standard fill in the blank. We're going to talk about this because you enter here even though we've made the fill in the blank here. So that's a single fill in the blank for just one answer in one area. The one that I like is the multiple fill in the blanks that allow you to type and recall information. If you're using something that has spelling, this is a very good one because you can test for spelling as well to make sure that they've actually assimilated that spelling list as well. So you can have multiples in this multiple fill in the blank here. Question 6 is a really cool one in that you are able to take a list that's on the left and then have multiple choices as a matching. So if you have, this one's going to go through different types of instruments, and then you have to pick the appropriate description that matches up with each one of those instruments. The last file type we have here in question 7 is using a file upload. This is very useful if you have a template for students to download. And here you can see that they can download. In this one, we're doing an image. The students were going to download it, and then they have 1 hour to modify that image and then choose the file and re-upload it back, and then you would grade that. So file upload is one of them. And then we're going to look at some other options here with some cool things for embedding audio and whatnot. So let's get into the different questions. I'm going to go in and edit that, and we're going to take a look at setting up these different questions and how they'll turn out when we do look at the answers and whatnot. I'm not going to worry about the details of the quiz. We're going to skip over that, and we're going to go right to questions. So the first one, as we mentioned, most faculty know about multiple choice. It's probably 90% of the quizzes that we see are multiple choice questions. Nothing wrong with that, but we want to give some more variety in different ways that we can try and tap the learning and assess the learning for our students. So in a standard multiple choice, we've selected it from the drop down here. We're going to choose to have one answer to the question out of all the possible answers. So as usual, we have a way that we can choose which is correct. We type in the answers, yes, no, I don't know. And then you would choose by clicking the green arrow next to the correct answers, which are the correct. So on that one, we go in, we enter in our information, we'll update that question. And then the one that I want to show you is the multiple answer one. So this is a little different than a multiple choice in that we can have multiple answers to a single question. So for an example, I use from the below choices, pick all that are a variety of apple. Instead of just saying, hey, pick one that's a variety of an apple, here we're going to ask them to pick multiples. And it could be anywhere from one correct answers, still out of four, to multiple correct answers, however many that you want. You can add as many as you want. So here you can see I've got a correct answer, Macintosh. I have a possible answer, Bartlett. I have a correct answer, Fuji. And then I have a possible answer as Freestone. Now I want you to notice right here, this is a feedback mechanism per answer that gives direct feedback on what if it was correct or not correct, and why it is correct and not correct for each one of the answers. So for this one, I have a correct answer of Macintosh. My comment is, more than a computer, this is a popular apple. Bartlett is not a correct answer, so my response is, this is a pear type, so Bartlett pears. Again, correct answer, Fuji, like the place to visit, Fiji, but different. So, and then I have one for Freestone, which is a type of peach. So now I can give individualized answers. So if I were to, I'm going to take and just copy this out of here. And go ahead and remove this completely and just say done. But what you do is you click this small box here, and it gives you the option to give a comment if they choose that correct answer or incorrect answer, and we can say done. Notice that you do have the option to add in other videos. So this type of adaptive feedback, if I wanted to send them to a video of Macintosh apples, if I wanted to give them feedback on why they got a mathematical problem wrong, I can include videos, I can include other mathematical equations, I can add images, all kinds of feedback to reinforce either those correct answers or to guide them back to why something is incorrect. It's very important that we give very critical, very instructive, and very useful feedback instead of, oh yeah, that's correct, good job. So even this, more than a computer, this is a popular apple, that's not really constructive feedback. It was more for fun. So, but even that level adds a bit of interest for the students. So once we have all that in place, one other thing at the bottom, so these are the individual responses for what's incorrect or correct. So you give more feedback. These at the bottom are the general comments for all correct or all incorrect, or just a general comment back no matter what they answer. So in this case, you could say, yes, make sure you're studying all the apple types. That would be general feedback for anything that they got correct. Again, same thing for what they get incorrect. And then general feedback might be, this was in chapter 3 through 4. If you were having problems with this question, make sure you go back to chapter 3 and 4 and review. So those are the type of things that you can do for adaptive feedback and making sure that we give critical feedback and informational feedback. Once you've updated or changed your question, you want to always make sure we update a question. So what about a fill in the blank? Fill in the blank is a very interesting one. And I'm going to show you here, we're going to do fill in the blank, and then we're going to do a multiple fill in the blank. So in this, we create a single blank that has a possible answer that you'll accept within there. So it's weird that you have to kind of type in the blank yourself. So here, if I were to type in, what is the name of a red color? The answer could be fire truck, it could be brick, or it could be candy apple. Those are colors red. But one of the things, if you wanted to say blank is the name of a red color, I have to go in and literally hold down this key to give a blank. Canvas doesn't automatically enter a box in line with the question. Now that's different than we do a multiple fill in the blank, and let me show you the difference here. I'm going to go ahead and update this question. Again, these are all possible correct answers. I can add incorrect answers, or anything outside of that would be an incorrect answer, and I could add my feedback at the bottom for why something is not correct. I'm going to go ahead and update that. And let's look at the fill in the blank, the multiples. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this. Now, what's interesting about creating a multiple fill in the blank is that it will create that line or box in line in the question with itself. We do that by defining a bracketed area and then using the possible answers for that one bracketed area and defining those. So let me show you how this works. I've typed in a question. The 2 steps for creating a quiz question are to create the bracket 1, then define the bracket 2. So within these spaces, this is where my answers will be for each of those questions. So we're going to look at what we need to create and then what we need to define. Down below here is where we enter those answers for either bracket 1 or bracket 2. So we start with bracket 1. So the possible answer is the 2 steps for creating a quiz question are to create the number 1, which is the question, and then number 2. Then we define the answer, or this one could have a possible of 2 answers, which is answers. So if somebody says, oh, well, we define a question, then we do answers. And then you could say, oh, we define the question that, or we create the question, then we define an answer. So we'll accept both of those to make sure that if somebody answered with answers, it isn't marked incorrect. So what's interesting about this is, let me go to a preview real quick here. Let's save the quiz really quick. And I want to show you what that looks like here. Boom. Actually, if I go into, let me go back into edit. I've got a, I logged into my student account within here too, and I can go through and actually take this quiz so I can show you what it looks like. So here, really quick, oh, it's putting them in a random order. That's why. So here is the fill in the blank. If you notice this fill in the blank, here's where I typed it. But to put in the answer box is at the bottom. It isn't in line with the question. And with a fill in the blank, there is no way to do that. However, when we use the multiple fill in the blanks with our bracket 1, bracket 2, the 2 steps for creating a quiz question are to create the blank area where I would type in 1 answer, then define the blank area where I put in 2. So one of the things we can do is completely ignore a standard fill in the blank and only make 1 question so we can make sure to have that in line. So for this down here, when we have a fill in the blank, if we simply wanted to have this in line, I could take out this and put in bracket 1, make this a fill in the blank with multiple blanks, and then only have 1 answer. And here's my answers for it. Update question. I'll go back into my test student here. I'm going to refresh this quiz. Leave page, it'll refresh. Boom. I probably need to exit the quiz and restart that. It won't let me refresh because of that, but then it would put in the blank within the inline without the box at the bottom. So one of my tips is, if you're ever doing fill in the blank, always use this fill in the blank with multiples. And the way we get to that is at the top, these are all selectable, is fill in multiple blanks. And that way, all we need to do is make sure, let me cancel out of this one, that we only use a single blank, fill in multiple blanks, but we only have to define 1 blank like that and then put in our possible answers. I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, just let me know. I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of that. And then filling in multiple blanks here. The next one we're going to look at is going to be matching. Now, this is a really cool one here, in that what you do is we're going to take on this left side over here, we're going to define some different things. In this particular example, I put in some instruments here, and then I put in the matching answer for a description of that instrument over here. At the bottom, we can put in a distractor, which means an answer that will not match to any of our list over there. So this is really kind of a cool one when you get to look at it live. Let me show you right here, question 6. So when you go to a matching, we have that instrument list over here, And then what has to happen is, like for this is a goblet shaped drum played by the whatever. This jibang thing is harp flute in West Africa. I'm looking over at the actual answer list. I don't know those, but so you can go through and you can pick multiple things. You can put the same things over. So if there's an answer that fits for more than one of these areas over here, we can always enter those. But that's a really neat way to be able to have people match sentences and concepts up to a definition list. It could be as simple as having like red, blue, green colors over here, and then being able to pick shades like violet, chartreuse, burgundy, whatever you want that match up with those different types of answers that are there. So that's what we do with matching. Again, when we look here, we can match. If they don't match it correctly, we have some feedback of why they didn't match that correctly. So Aphili is going to be the goblet-shaped drum. You could say, oh, make sure maybe you picked two-headed cylindrical drum, and that's the gabung. So you want to make sure you kind of guide them to those correct answers. Again, a distractor list can be multiple answers that actually don't fit any of them to help. It's not really to trick the students, but to make sure that they understand why they are picking those correct answers as well. So this last item that we're going to look at for the different file types is going to be the file upload. And I rarely see this used, but it's really a neat way to add a question into your quiz. So it allows students to upload a file for a question on a test. So normally we'll see essay questions, and it gives them a box with some basic tools where they can type information in. However, if you're doing an essay question and you want them to use citation with proper formatting, if you're doing a research paper formatting quiz, you want them to use proper research with the hanging indents and all that, you can't do that within Canvas, or you can't do it very easily. So one way you can do that is allow a student to download a file, a template, while they're taking the quiz, and then they can work on it at their computer. You give them a time limit of maybe 30 minutes. They modify that template, and then at the end, they're going to go ahead and upload that file. So what that's going to look like is here, in this example, I have this image, and this could be for a Photoshop class, and you've been going over how to take a black and white photo and color it. So here's the image, and I give them maybe 30 minutes to download the file. So when they click, you can see, I'm going to cancel that. It would open up a window that says download that file. They download it, modify it in Photoshop. Then they simply go, choose the file wherever it is. Here's the link in black and white. I don't know where my link in color went. But we aren't going to worry about it right now. Those are pretty cool. If you haven't seen these, there's a whole bunch of them online where people take black and white photos and they colorize them and bring life to those black and white photos all the way back to the 1800s, early 1900s, just amazing. So then they would choose the file, upload it like they normally would, and on a submission side, you would see a submission with that file that you could click open and then grade them. So those are the file types we're looking at. Again, the basics of them are to try and do something besides a simple matching, true and false, or a basic essay question, things that might engage them or trigger or assess learning in different ways. So we had our, let me get back into this side of it. We had multiple choice. We showed an example of that. We had multiple answer, where there's a variety of answers that are within each one of those questions. We had the multiple drop downs that we define these one. Oh, I don't think I actually hit this one. We might have skipped over it. So a multiple drop down allows you to, it's like a multiple fill in the blank, but instead of having a blank they have to type into, if you're checking spelling and stuff, if you wanted to just have a short list of items that they could choose from, so they just choose those correct items, it's very similar to that fill in the blank. So here's a sample of it. When creating a multiple drop down question, you use bracket 1 to create bracket 2 throughout the question. Then create the possible bracket 3. Again, when we define these brackets, those are where the drop downs are going to be. So here, For bracket 1, 2, and 3, we define the answers. So for bracket 1, the correct answer is brackets. A possible answer that is not correct is going to be hyphens. We don't use hyphens, we use brackets. So now let's see for the drop down in 2, we create drop downs. A possible answer will be blanks, and then the same thing for 3. Correct answer is answers. Possible answer is pictures. So what does that look like again when we're looking at a live test? Here we go. So when creating multiple drop-down questions, you use brackets to create drop-downs throughout the question. Then create the possible answers for each. So that's the way a drop-down works, where you can assess different points within an essay sentence structure and give them options to help guide them to the correct answers. So just a little bit different than a fill in the blank, a little bit different than saying, what do you use to put in for creating the drop downs? Brackets, choose from 1 or 4 selections. So a really cool way that you can do that. So let's see, this allows you to choose one answer. This is multiple choice. Yes. This question allows for multiple selections from possible answers. Again, this is like a multiple choice, but it's multiple answers. So here, pick all the varieties that are apples. We have Macintosh and the Fuji. Bartlett's a pear, Freestone is a peach. We've just went through and did the different drop downs there. Here's that fill in the blank. Again, I don't recommend using fill in the blank because it puts that box at the bottom instead of in line. Name of a color red, let's just say brick. Create multiple blanks. This one, remember, we only have to create one. So instead of a standard fill in the blank, we want to use fill in multiple blanks. But here, the 2 steps for creating the quiz are to create the question and then define the answer. And this one we gave multiple answers, so they could say answer or answers and still get it correct. Here's that matching on the musical one. I'm sure I got a few of those wrong, but again, this is really neat because you have a definition term or sentence, a picture, and then you have a description, a word, a definition that you can choose from over here. So here we have the final one where we go through and we choose a file to upload. We're going to go through, we're just going to pick this one, we're going to say open, it's going to go through and it'll tell it that the file has successfully uploaded. Now for students, they have to make sure to submit the quiz in order to submit that file as well. The last piece is here. We have about 5 minutes left really quick. I just wanted to show you a couple different things that I like to do. This one allows you to insert an audio file to listen to a Spanish term and then select the correct English version translation of that. So what I've done is in the top portion, I went through and I found an MP3 URL and I took the, let's see, what's it under? It's under, let me see if I can allow me to do that. Ah, there we go. So in general, it says insert a type of media. For this, it's an MP3. I just went, found this URL, I paste it in there and I say, okay. So when we go back to this, we have a way that, so it has a Spanish phrase, and then the student can go through and choose what it is. Where is the bus stop? Where is the taxi going? Where's it gone? That's the Texas way to say that. Where is the pencil? Where is the, ¿Dónde está el baños? No, it is not the bathroom. So this is where's the bus stop. But it's a different way to, instead of just typing out a pronunciation or a sentence that's in Spanish, you can have a way that you embed those audio files and have it a spoken translation and then translate it back to English. Just a really neat way to be able to put that in there for acquisition and assessment of learning. Another one that I really like is, let me go in here, image as answers. So what we normally do, if we were talking about architecture, you might put a picture in up here by choosing this picture. You go and you find it up there and you put in a picture and you say, in a multiple choice, you'll say, what type of architecture is this? And in the multiple choice, you'll have colonial, French, Roman, Indian, whatever it is, and they have to pick one. Well, why don't we reverse that? So here we're going to say, choose the image that best represents colonial architecture. So what people do is when they're putting in an answer, by default, you'll see just a basic text box and they go, oh, there's not much you can do. However, if you look over to the right, you can add in all the exact same elements as the question by clicking the pencil. Once you click that, now you can add in any type of media, pictures, links, all kinds of different things for your answer instead of just the question. I'm going to remove that. I'm going to delete that one. But here you can see I've put in correct answers that are visual representations of different types of architecture, and the student has to go through and choose the correct one. So in question 9 here, choose the image that best represents colonial architecture. Well, that looks kind of colonial. That's somewhat colonial, but those big sloped roof like that doesn't look the same, and the arches. This is definitely not colonial, and this looks more like Roman, basically because I think it has some Roman writing on there. So I would think it was this one. So you go ahead and do that. So there's just some of the basic things that you can do with your quizzes. One last piece that I want to show you here is I've given feedback to the students to allow them to see what kind of correct answers that they have. Again, multiple choice has a single answer. Multiple answers allows you to have one or more answers. This here is a drop down. Remember, we chose the drop downs here and I got all of those correct. This one is a fill in the blank where I had multiple possible answers for that one area. So it shows me that I got it correct, but here are the other answers that I could have used. Saying here, these are multiple fill-ins. I could have used answer or answers. I used answer out of there, still got it correct. In here, obviously, I did terrible. I got 1 correct out of 7 on my musical instruments from Thailand. I don't really know those. I thought that was a neat one. But again, at the bottom here, this will not, it shows my submission, but it doesn't tell me if I've got it correct or not. One thing as an instructor, once I have students who have taken this test with different types, cancel. We got about 3 minutes left, so let me finish up on this. When I go to, actually see here if it shows up in the gradebook for the student. So in grades for the student. So this would be what a student saw. They went through, they took the quiz, they can see the answers, but there's a note in here for this quiz examples. Right here, instead of a grade, they have a little rocket ship. It says instructor is working on grades. That's an important thing. If you're doing essay questions, if you're doing a file upload, or anything that doesn't have correct, right, and wrong answers already plugged in, you're going to get notification, and the student's going to get notification that they don't have a score until you go through and you actually score those questions. So on your side, on the student side, they see a little rocket that tells them that it hasn't been graded yet. For this example, it's because we uploaded a file and you visually have to look at that and then give points to it. So as an instructor, if you go to SpeedGrader, right in here, it's going to tell you what question you need to correct or grade before it will release that. So here it says question 7 needs review. So if we scroll down to question 7, we can see right here is question 7, and this is their submission. So we could click to open their submission, and we can look through and give them the points that we want to give them for that. You can add in some comments, great picture, and then you would submit that, and then it would actually release the grade out to them. So I hope that's some good tips for you in using a variety of quiz types instead of the multiple choice, true, false, and essay questions. This is a recording that I'm doing, so hopefully I'll be able to get this up and sent out for review. This is a continuing piece that we're doing to try and diversify quizzes and get more interest in ways that we assess learning in there. If you do have any questions on the different types of file type when you're trying to create them, just let us know. Again, my name's Michael Rosenberger. We're over in CTL. You can find us in the 2nd floor of F building, or you can contact us at ctl@phoenixcollege.edu. We'd love to help you diversify your quizzes. So are there any questions at this point? You can type them in chat over here. We only have a few minutes left. If not, again, CTL at phoenixcollege.edu. I will follow up with all the participants, send out to the recording some links to the different types of file question types from the Canvas documentation, so that way you can go through and review that. All right, thank you. All right, I will talk to everybody later. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.